been a nurse for 10 years now, and in that time, I've seen my fair share of struggles and triumphs on the hospital floor. But there's one patient who still haunts me to this day. A young man named John who was left comatose after a brutal car accident. For weeks, he lay in bed, his eyes closed, his body broken, and his spirit crushed. I was assigned to care for him every day, and at first, it felt like just another shift. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to notice something. John wasn't getting any better. In fact, he seemed to be slipping away from us a little more each day. His family would come to visit, and I could see the desperation in their eyes. They were clinging to hope like it was the last thread of sanity. I tried to do my job as best I could, but it was hard. John's presence on the floor was like a dark cloud hanging over us all. His chart was filled with IVs, monitors beeping constantly, and medications that did little more than mask his pain. And then there were the moments when he'd twitch or flinch, tiny movements that made me feel like I was watching something precious slip away. But even in the midst of all this despair, I found myself drawn to John's chart. There was something about his name, something about the way it looked on paper, that tugged at my heartstrings. Maybe it was because I knew what he used to be, a young man with dreams and aspirations, a life full of possibility. I started to wonder what kind of person John would have been if he'd woken up from that coma. Would he have been a doctor, a teacher, an artist? And as those questions swirled in my mind, I found myself making small changes around the hospital room. I'd bring him fresh flowers or read him his favorite book, tiny acts of kindness that felt like they might make a difference. And then one day, something changed. It was like a switch flipped inside me, and suddenly everything seemed different. John's eyes flickered open, just for a second, but it was enough. I swear to you, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. His gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, we were connected. We spent the next few weeks working together, me helping him learn to walk again, him teaching me about art and music. It wasn't easy, but slowly, he started to come back to us. He'd draw pictures on the walls of his room, and I'd sit with him, listening as he told me stories about his childhood. And then one day, John asked me for a pencil, just a simple number 2, and in that moment, everything changed again. As we sat together, watching the sun set through his window, John started to draw. His strokes were tentative at first, but soon they grew stronger, more confident. I'll never forget what he drew that day. A beautiful landscape of rolling hills and towering trees, with a small figure in the distance, walking towards the horizon. It was like looking into my own soul, I swear, as we sat there together, watching that drawing come to life. I knew that John had given me a gift, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always hope.